Amazing guest for you today. We have us with today Derrick Pledger. Derrick is the Chief Digital and Information Officer at Maximus since January 2024, and he leads the company's technology strategy, delivery operations, and digital modernization initiatives. Drawing on over 20 years of experience in areas like automation, cloud and edge computing, AI, and data analytics, he delivers secure digital transformation by fostering leading industry partnerships and a skilled workforce. Derrick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the intro, and of course, thanks for having me. Look forward to having this conversation with you about procrastination, something that I think is a very insidious phenomenon, and it's something that affects us all. So, looking forward to the dialogue, Chris.
Oh, and we have a lot of things to dig into as well. But before we do like to have an icebreaker on the show. And the question for you today is, which superhero do you identify with the most and why?
Hmm. Great question. Great icebreaker. I'd have to say my go-to would be Iron Man because he's broken, but even in his imperfection, he always still gets the job done. And he, even though he's pretty self-centered, self-absorbed, he still is in the service of people, right? In the service of um, you know his crew that he's with is in service of humanity. And I really like that because I'm an army guy. Service is something that's really important to me. But I'm also imperfect. I'm also broken, and I think all of us have broken pieces of ourselves. But he pulls it together and gets the job done. So that's something I'm really a fan of. So definitely would have to say Iron Man is my go-to, Chris.
I definitely like that one. Iron Man has always been a favorite of mine as well. Was it Love You 3000? Yeah, that was what it was. Yeah, I like that. I definitely like that. So Derek, tell me, what is procrastination to you? How do you define it? And what does it mean to you personally?
Oh, good question. I think procrastination really, to me, is when you have the space and capacity to get something done, but you choose not to do so. And that, to me, a lot of people think that it's not a choice, but it's definitely a choice, right? So, in my own world, there's a lot of time that I know I need to get a specific project done, or I want to get reading done, or there's a task that I want to do, and I have the space and capacity to do it, but there's something within me that I just delay it. I say, hey, I'll do it in another 30 minutes. And then that 30 minutes turns into an hour and a half because I was just um, letting my mind kind of go in other places and I wasn't being focused on what I need to get done. So I think, procrastination is all about choice, right? If you have the space and capacity to do something. So the trick for me is always, if I know I have the space and capacity to do something, you need to have a worthwhile pursuit, something that will um, get you off the couch, something that will make you feel real guilty about wasting that space and capacity. So I find that if you do procrastinate, that thing that you're supposed to do must not have been that important, must not have been that worthwhile. So the trick that I've always used is to make sure that if there's a task I want to do, if there's a project that I want to complete, I need to be very clear about my why and is it a worthwhile pursuit for me to get it done. That's what I use to kind of make sure I'm up off the couch and getting after it.
I like that. The when the why is high, the cost is low. I definitely like that. Um, and actually, you actually talk about procrastination in your book a little bit, right?
Yeah, I do. So I actually wrote two books, but my most recent one is called "Your Brain Weighs 500 Pounds," and the concept was really born out of the idea that we spend a fortune trying to fix or change our external appearances every single day. But the key really lies in, providing our minds with the right ingredients, as I like to call it, so we can develop the right mindset. So I thought to myself, what would it be like if you could visualize what our brains would look like if they were actual bodies, a true representation of the content that we feed it, right? So, and very quickly, I came to the conclusion that most of us, most of our brains would look pretty atrocious considering the amount of time we spend, ingesting unhealthy ideas, crazy things in the news, scrolling social media, just all the misinformation that is out there. It's just a lot of BS out there. So what I set out to do was kind of put the world on a new brain diet, as I like to call it, through a book, so I can provide some good mental nutrition to help folks reach their goals. So the book is really packed with 100 lessons, which I call recipes to riff on the whole diet angle. And to really focus on helping folks change perceptions about failure, becoming disciplined, not procrastinating. That's why I'm here on your show. And just really following behaviors that are not self sabotaging in any way. And how I wrote the book is I spent 2 years journaling, right? Documenting my own experiences and distilling lessons from, from podcasts, from reading, um, from, having conversations with mentors, having conversations with, um, you know, folks that may have been in a diner somewhere. And I just distilled all that into an easy to read, um, book that you could get through on a flight. And it really was about how do you become the person that you need to be to achieve what you want. It's not about going and running a marathon. It's about becoming a runner, and running that marathon is the byproduct. So I put all those things in a book to help me not procrastinate in a way to get to some of the things that I wanted to achieve in life, and I'm just trying to help people do the same. So that's really the concept, Chris.
I really like that. And again, I know my audience right now that, and there's probably about 5, 10, I don't know how many people rolling their eyes because they know what's coming. And I do have some other, actual worthwhile questions, but, I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't ask you this. They say that writing is really 98% procrastination and 2% actually doing it. How true was that for you in your process there?
I think because I'm pretty disciplined about journaling, the hard work was already done. As I said, I took kind of a shortcut because I journaled every single day for almost 18 months. So each of those days, I essentially turned that into a chapter in the book. So the hard work was already done. What I had to do is go back and sort of try to relive those days and then explain something valuable. So if you're in a book, and, I talk about things like ambition is good, things like worthwhile pursuit. We worthwhile pursuits. We already touched on that. Discipline is a foundation of achievement. So what I did was in a very practical manner, and not just kind of theory speak. It's hey, discipline is a foundation of achievement. Then I talk about a why and how you should apply it to your life, or what you should actually go do to put discipline into practice. So it's not just one of those, hey, here's the formula for this, and now this is what you need to go do. It's supposed to be reflective and force you to ask hard questions, about yourself. So the writing for me, the process of journaling helped provide the foundation for writing a book. So I'm not sure if that's everyone's process, because writing a book is pretty difficult. But when you do the prep work, I say for me, it was a bit easier. That was the long part, and then it took probably maybe a month or two to distill all that down into what the actual book was. And then you go through the editing process, etc. But for me, journaling really was the core to getting the book done.
What do you think was your biggest challenge in that process? And I mean, you talked about discipline and you talked about, sitting down and journaling it. What do you think was the biggest challenge of that process?
I would say when skipping a day. Like when I would skip a day, it really would sort of break my momentum, and it would sort of throw my days off. Like if I didn't get up, kind of set my goals down for the day, journal on sort of what I learned yesterday. I have this process that I call my daily introspection, and I literally will get up, look myself in the mirror, and say, did I win or lose yesterday? And what that means is did I give everything I had to be able to complete what I needed to complete? Did I do the things I needed to do for family or friends? Or for myself in terms of going to the gym, working out, etc. So I find that on those days where I know that I lost the day before, um, it's hard. It's really difficult to kind of get back on the saddle the next day and keep going. But what I found is, you know, just doing it anyway. Um, that's just a part of my mantra. Do it anyway. I don't feel like writing in a journal. I do it anyway. I don't feel like going to the gym. I do it anyway. And over time, that has gotten me to the point where, bringing it back to procrastination, that it's just not something I even think about anymore because I've trained my mind that these things are non-negotiable with me. It's not optional. You will do a thing, and I think that's one of the ways that I've been successful at beating procrastination in many cases.
I like that. Discipline. Make it a non-negotiable. The book is really designed, as you mentioned, to make you reflect and ask yourself those questions. I'm curious, what did you learn about what is the most surprising thing that maybe you learned about yourself during that process?
Um, Probably changing the relationship that I had with failure, right? Because if you think about um, what we're taught as kids, right? Failure is such a bad thing. Think about if you get if you get an A on a test, you're celebrated. It's phenomenal. If you get a D or an F, it's like you need to go into the corner and cry, or you're afraid to give your mom or dad, that report card. Um, I think we need to turn that upside down and you know, from a culture perspective, we should be embracing failure, or we want children to fail. Because if you think about it, the best things come out of failure, right? You think about the most successful people in the world, they're also the best at failure. So what I learned is through this journey of writing this book is that I should be celebrating failure. I should be failing at something every single day, because if I'm not, then I'm not trying hard enough. So for me, it was, as part of the introspection, it was, look, let's not run away from failure, Derek. We should be running toward it. And that's something that I really embrace now, because every time I fail at something, I put that lesson in the toolbox, and that gives me some ammunition for something I need to go attack later, or something that I do not want to repeat. So failing hard, failing fast is something that um, you know, in the journey in the book really was something that was a positive for me in changing my relationship or my viewpoint on failure.
I really like that, and it reminds me of something I heard from another coach out of the UK. Actually, it came from her daughter's choreography school, and they reframed failure as fail as an acronym. So, but they said it was the first attempt in learning,
Yeah,
and it's interesting what you say there, the successes, because I know I can speak from this from personal experience that if you happen to have a rabbit's foot sticking somewhere and you all you have is success, you don't really learn much as a person. You don't really grow. Isn't that right?
yeah, totally. I agree with that 100%. And I think you know I think a close relationship or a close cousin to failure is everyone talks about goals, and we all need to set goals, and obviously that is true. But a lot of us um, are kind of afraid to set goals that are what some refer to as BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, things that are going to be incredibly hard to achieve, because why, we don't want to fail. And I think that's, we do ourselves a disservice when we make our goals a bit too achievable, because then you don't stretch yourself. So if you're sort of guarding yourself against failure, you're guarding yourself against doing difficult things, you'll never achieve something that's big or worthwhile, or that's going to be life changing. So for me, I think you should set goals that are um, very difficult to achieve, and everything that you learn uh, along that process, and a person that you need to become um, to be able to achieve that goal. I think that is really the crux of the matter in terms of what we should be trying to be for ourselves, right? What type of person do I need to be to achieve said thing? And having small goals or playing small ball is absolutely not going to get you there.
Mm. You touched on a couple of things there that was really interesting, and there is a bigger movement now. Instead of those, you touched on a little bit. Instead of the to-do list, it's the to-be list.
Ah,
And if you have an issue in creating goals, because maybe you don't know what goals you need to set,
sure.
and like you said, if I want to be a better public speaker, what are the goals that I would need to do that? And then the other thing that you said was that sometimes they're just too big, and they feel overwhelming, and then it's almost like that we put them out of reach on purpose, right?
Right.
So the goal is maybe I want to be an astronaut. Well, okay, great. What do you do to get there, right?
Yeah, right, right. What's your action plan?
So just by breaking those down, as small as possible, then you get a bunch of little goals, right? And then those are easier to do. Have you found in your personal experience? Have you found any difference between setting small goals versus setting big goals?
I think you just touched on it, on what you just said, Chris, and that is, even if it's a huge goal, something that is going to be extremely taxing. I think we need to give ourselves a bit of grace, and what I mean by that is break it down into smaller chunks or things that are incremental. So along the way, you could at least feel like you achieved something, or you got an incremental win. Because if it's going to take you 24 months to do something, um, that may be that's fine. But if you can break it down into 6 month chunks and say, hey, when I get to 6 months, this milestone is X. When you achieve that, at least you can give yourself a win and some motivation, to keep on going, because motivation is something that, it's up and down, right? We have motivation, we lose motivation. At the end of the day, motivation doesn't matter. Do you have the discipline to keep going? And I think what can feed that discipline is having, um, incremental wins that you can at least give your brain a jump start. Say, yeah, I am making progress. A discernible progress is important for all of us, right? Because it gives you the ability to keep going. So I would say, don't, if you have something that's going to take you 10 years, you got to give yourself some wins in the interim, year one, year two, year five, whatever that is. Um, and 'cause you just got to break it up into some bite-sized chunks.
Hmm. Productivity is something that everybody's striving for, and they feel like that if you're not doing anything, you aren't you aren't achieving anything. You aren't productive unless you're busy, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that could be and do you see that in your place of work where
I mean, totally. I think we all see that, and this is something that, it has been an issue for me too. I'm a tech guy. I'm in the tech world, and there have been projects that I've been on as I was coming up through the ranks, before I was in leadership at a large company, and that I was extremely busy for a couple of weeks. But if I, you know, take a stock on what I actually got completed, um, you could be super busy and still get nothing done. So I think it's important to be honest with ourselves around, and have a no kidding plan, about a specific outcome. Because if your specific outcome is not defined and you're not doing something that's going to incrementally drive you toward that, you could be super busy and still never hit that. So I think that's something that, I have a war with myself on the every day about, because we all have limited time, right? Limited capacity to get things done. So I do try to break things down, to, what are the things that I can get accomplished, in this day, that are going to, move me toward, that goal, or to that outcome, or to that completion. And then I need to hold myself accountable to those things, right? If I just do work on, 10 different things, that doesn't bring me, closer to a specific outcome, then the lack of focus is what is going to stop you from being able to be, what we, consider to be productive, right? So I think, having focus, and being very specific about outcomes is the key to make sure that busy work is actually productive. It's not just busy work for busy work's sake.
No, I like that, and especially in the tech world, it's difficult sometimes because especially in project management, I'm sure because you've got maybe 10 projects, and then you normally work 10% on each project then on any given day,
Right.
but then you have meetings, then you have different things that you're doing, and those aren't necessarily productive. Leading into that, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and how that's changing the landscape of being productive?
Yeah, I mean, you can never have a conversation any day of the week, at least in my world, without saying AI or Gen AI. There is a lot of, hysteria out there. Oh my God, AI is coming to take our jobs, and all of that. But it's just not true. I think, AI is a continuum like everything else. I think AI is a phenomenal capability, because I think it's going to allow, um, humans, to be able to focus on things that are of higher value, for us to be able to solve, problems that have been vexing, for a lot of time. So a lot of the menial work that, um, we used to take 100 people to do. Um, Using AI, it might only take 10. So those 90 could be producing the next big tech or focusing on solving another problem or curing cancer or something like that. So AI to me is it's a tool, right? It's an enabler. It's something that should help lives get easier. It's not about displacement. It's not about jobs. Now, some jobs will be affected, but I think AI is a phenomenal tool, and we use it every single day. And uh, in our business because we're a paperwork heavy business. We do a lot of things around transformation in terms of enrolling individuals in benefits. So when you think about billions upon billions of documents that you need to be processed, like we no longer need humans to do that. We can use AI to transcribe 30 different documents into one or two, so a human can make a decision on. So for me, AI is it's phenomenal. It's a tool. It's game changing, and I think we just need to get very clear and prescriptive about how we use AI as a tool to make better experiences, both digitally and on the consumer side for all of us. Right. So I love AI. I think it's great, and I use it every single day. My kids use it. Everyone knows about ChatGPT, but Microsoft's Copilot. There's a ton of ways that you can be more productive in life if you put AI to work. So running from it is not the answer. Learning about it and how you can apply it to your life, I think, is something that's really important.
No, it is it's a very good you know it's a very good tools out there. And my thing is, and this argument has existed since the beginning of time, right? Because they made the same argument with calculators when they were replacing the abacus. They made the same argument when they
Yeah,
replaced
absolutely.
cash registers with calculators or whatever. Do you think that we may be starting to? I mean, I'm definitely guilty of this. I I'll be the first one to say that Chat GPT was down in Canada for Cloudflare out of Toronto was
Ah,
down
yeah,
for
right,
like
that
20
issue. All right.
minutes.
Okay.
I found myself not doing anything, which is, and I caught myself. I'm like, wow.
Really?
Do you think there that we should be more mindful of that moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. So, I can't, I'd be foolish to say, Chris, that there are no, negative um, or secondary, tertiary effects of AI. There could be, right? Because it's not all, it's not everything is perfect about AI, and like there will be folks that are displaced in terms of work, especially if it's jobs that are a bit more menial or things that could be replaced by automation and things like that. But if you use AI to a degree that it makes you sort of lazy or makes you procrastinate, and which you are a coach of, I think that could be sort of one of the derogatory effects of it. If you are instead of you learning how to write and put a paper together and articulate your ideas, instead you come up with a couple bullets, throw it in Chat GPT, spit out your paper, and then you go hand that in. You're not really becoming. You didn't learn anything. You use it as a tool, but you don't have the basics to be able to do what you need to do. So I do think it is a slippery slope in terms of do you use it? So are you so dependent on it that you're sabotaging your own learning or you're sabotaging yourself? So no, man, that's a good point. It's a contrarian view that I haven't um, really confronted myself with, but I think you're spot on. Good question.
What would you say is your favorite go to productivity tool right now? Because I mean, we know that there's going to be like 20 or 30 new ones, but right now, what's the best tool for you?
So what I've been using a lot is Microsoft Copilot, because I can go to a website or I can have a long um, document or a meeting that happens, and I just use Copilot to do the transcription of the actual meeting instead of taking notes. So I used to have these long notebooks with tasks about tasks and notes when a meeting. We don't do that anymore because we're using the Microsoft Teams productivity suite. So when we get off a Teams call, the transcription automatically is done. We can send that out to everyone. Typically, we read through it. It does capture pretty much everything, or being able to distill information, large amounts of information, into sort of the critical points that you need to take away. Because my time is so precious and I need to be able to focus on specific things. I don't have time to read a 30-page document before a meeting. I'll use Copilot or one of the other AI tools out there to um, build a
Yeah.
synopsis of it, and then I get the salient points, and I'm prepared for the meeting. So being able to save time is something that's really important to me. So from a productivity perspective, it's about information and how do I distill information down such that I can get something in 5 minutes versus spending an hour doing it, and that really has enabled me to take more control of my day.
Has it, you just mentioned the when it summarizes the meeting notes, and I mean that is a really great feature. Do you think that it's now leading more credence to, that meeting could have been an email? I mean, are we going to be seeing less meetings now, maybe because of
Um,
what comes out of this?
yeah, I mean that's a phenomenal question because it I think meetings, the frequency of it or lack thereof, that's a culture thing, right? Because there are some tech companies where there's no need for meetings. Everything is in Slack. Every person just works out of Slack. Key things and decisions can be driven because people are already collaborating. Some cultures where you're in meetings from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you need to get everyone in a room to get consensus before you make a decision. So I think that's a cultural thing. Now, the company I work for, we do have a lot of meetings, but we are trying to use technology and essentially evolving the culture such that we don't need a meeting if there needs to be a decision. Perhaps we could do it via a dashboard or put critical things that we need to decide in Slack. Everyone weighs in, then we make a decision, right? Instead of everyone getting into a call virtually or in person, everyone goes around the table talking about risk and things like that. So I do think that leveraging AI could potentially in the right cultural circumstances reduce the amount of meetings that you have, and you could spend more time trying to be productive or drive to an outcome. So no, it's a good question, but I think it all it all starts with culture and what type of culture do you have built at a particular company or your startup or what have you.
You said something there that was really interesting. You said about getting into the meetings and needing to come to consensus, and it gets me thinking about procrastination from a corporate level. I mean, if we're sitting there and you have to have consensus from everybody, and everybody's just thinking about all the risks, how do you personally, when you look at something like that, when you're looking at, and again, we know it's culture, but where do you find the balance with, especially in tech because it's going so fast,
Yeah,
between doing risk analysis and just moving forward?
sure. What we try to do within my team and more broadly across Maximus is recognize that um, collaboration doesn't necessarily mean consensus, right? So, just to give you an example, if we need to decide if we're going to deploy a new enterprise system or if we're going to, um, kick off a new project, and we need a couple different stakeholders to say yes. Not every stakeholder may agree, right? Some may want to use, widget X. Another person may think that widget Y is better. Um, and what I've started to sort of culturally, you know, was becoming pervasive around my team is that yeah, we can collaborate, but we don't need consensus rather. We will be decisive and go do a thing. So if there's 10 people in the room and the plurality of those folks, maybe four, agree on a pathway forward, and then the other six all have their opinions, but it's not that we're going to move out with the four because we have plurality. So we're going to make that decision and be decisive. And when you try to get if you on the flip side of that, Chris, if you try to get consensus of all 10, you could be in that meeting for the next 10 days and not get something figured out. So for us, it's about being decisive, making sure data supports the decision that we actually made, and then just taking action. Because the inertia is a lot of time what kills being able to drive to an outcome because you don't even get started because you're trying to build a consensus. I think you should collaborate, but the consensus thing is something that I think in the corporate world we take way too far. I'd rather err on the side of being decisive in getting things done, taking action as opposed to trying to get consensus across every stakeholder that may perhaps be at the table.
No, that makes a lot of sense. In your experience, is it more about, especially when there isn't consensus on, say, a project or a direction to go? Is it more about, again, in your experience, is it generally more about getting it right, perfect, having the right answer, or is it more about, potential risks or downsides that are considered
Um, yeah, I don't think it's binary. I think both of those things go into the calculus. But within my teams, one of the things that I am um, an extreme harbinger of is any decision that we make, whether it be system wise or initiative that we plan to do, there better be some sort of ROI or business case or analysis that um, substantiates why we made that decision. That's important because if we get 2 years down the line, it's like, hey, man, this system doesn't scale or it's not working for us. So we need to make a change. It's like, wait, why did we decide on this in the first place? We better be able to go 2 years back and figure out if we do an autopsy on why we made that decision. There better be some data that supports that. If it's just sort of willy nilly or we didn't do the right amount of diligence to make a decision, um, and someone brings that type of initiative forward without the due diligence, then it's something that we just throw it off the table. So for me, it is about risk. It's for also for us, it's about speed, right? So if we have if there's an outcome that we need to get to or we want to get to into a certain customer space, I'm willing to take more risk if we can do something faster such that we're able to execute within a market or execute a strategy. So I think those are the levers that always go into the calculus in terms of how we make a decision. So it is risk, but I think speed matters. But at the crux of it all, it's all about data. What does the business case say? What does the data say about what you're trying to do? And you won't know everything, but you should have enough data that will support and substantiate why you chose a specific direction.
more? And actually, you segued into something really, really important too. A lot of times in procrastination, it's about decisions, right? I mean, whether it's corporate decisions, personal decisions. How do you look at decisions? I mean, when you have data points, I mean, do you set time limits on decisions, or do you just say you need the data before you make a decision, no matter how long it takes?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a good question because we make so many decisions every single day, consciously, subconsciously. But I think it all depends on the level and criticality of a decision, right? And I do force myself to try to understand. I know this is it's kind of a cliche, but the consequences of the consequences. If you force yourself to do that work, that could be very informative to how you make a decision, right? Because if you make a decision, there's going to be consequences for the consequences of of what you put out there, right? So I think I always try to think forward and sort of reverse engineer um, where I will be after I make a specific decision. That's in my personal life as well as on the technical side of things on what I do from the even in sort of the personal side where I try to help folks and do coaching similar to what you do. I try to implore folks that I'm having conversations with that you need to be very crisp and clear around the consequences of your decisions, but not just those consequences, but those secondary and tertiary effects that may also result. So it's almost like a three-dimensional chess game that I play with myself to make sure that I get to the right decision. And sometimes um, I may make the wrong decision, but I learn. Or sometimes failure may be a byproduct of that, and I'm okay with that. As we talked about earlier, I think you know, making a decision, failing at a decision is better than being indecisive or being in a rut of indecision. Because I think indecision or lack of making a decision is one of the most self-sabotaging things that you can do to yourself.
No, and I mean you're right about that for sure. We get into, they call it analysis paralysis, right? Or they,
Absolutely.
but I wonder, just as you were talking there, I wonder if maybe some of it isn't just that we're setting ourselves up for it because there is so much data, so much information. How do you filter what's important data points and what's not important data points?
Yeah, that's something that we all need to work on every single day because the amount of noise that is out there is just totally it's ridiculous. The amount of information flow is so high, and our brains need to be able to get um, synthesize it all, right? So, how do you bring sanity to a very insane place as it comes to information? And I try to work on that every single day. But I think one of the best ways to do that is to every single day you don't necessarily need to write it down. This is something that I do, but you should have a list of things. Your critical list. What are the 3 or 4 or 5 things that you know for a fact that you need to get done today, or your day will not be complete? Write those things down. Make the list, visual list in your brain or what have you, and you make that social contract with yourself, right? And knowing that if you get to 8, 9 o'clock at night and you did not complete that list that you put out, you failed that social contract and you let yourself down. And you should feel bad about letting yourself down. So I think making promises to yourself is critically important, and that's what I try to do every single day as well. And again, that goes back into the autopsy I talked to you about. If I made promises to myself that I was going to do the 5 things, I didn't do those things. The next day, when I do the autopsy about my day, that means I lost the day. And I need to have a very honest conversation with myself about what am I going to do differently to win this day. You lost yesterday. Something needs to change today. You better be more disciplined. You better double up. Don't let yourself down 2 days in a row. That's how I deal with it. That's how I try to help others deal with it. But it's not one size fits all, Chris. Everyone's going to have their own way and formula. But I think promising yourself and making a social contract with yourself is certainly a mechanism that you can use to try to make sure that you are moving closer to your goals incrementally every single day.
Mhm. No, I definitely like that, and I like the fact that you say that we have to be accountable to ourselves as well. Um, one of the things I often wonder about is what's your method for staying accountable to yourself with that social contract? Do you use any kind of reward system, or do you how do you keep that accountability for yourself?
Yeah, for me, it's all in my mind, right? Because I think mindset for me is everything. I've read a ton of books. I've wrote a book on mindset, and I think um, you know the reward for me is not letting myself down, right? And because if I'm letting myself down, how can I be in service of others? And I think this is critically important because if you think about um, everything that you do in life, everything that we do in life, if we procrastinate on a particular project or we didn't develop ourselves to be able to achieve this or that or audacious goal as we talked about before, you're not only robbing yourself of the possibility of greatness or the possibility of achieving something, but you're robbing others who could have been a benefactor of that greatness or the benefactor of something that you completed. So it's not just about me, right? It's not just about you. It's about um, you know what are you completing? How do you get something done, and what are you doing in service of others? And I think um, not being self-centered or self-absorbed about what it is that you're trying to achieve is really important because if you know you're doing something and you don't want to let your mom, dad, spouse, whatever, I think you take it a bit more serious in terms of things that you want to get accomplished. So I would say I do make those social contracts with myself, but I also think about it in a way that man, if I don't complete this or I don't get this done, there's so many other people that are going to lose, right? There's so many other folks that um, you know could have benefited for me completing a thing. So that's what does it for me, and I think we need a lot more folks that have that same sort of orientation. To It's not just in service of you; it's in service of everyone around you. or humanity in general, right? So that's kind of my viewpoint on
No, I really like that. That viewpoint. It's actually becoming a more common viewpoint as well. Many people have said the same. Uh, Derek, it's been a real pleasure. We are coming up towards the end of the time. Uh, is there any question you feel that I should have asked but didn't ask, or any anything that we should have covered but we didn't cover today?
No, I mean, you're a procrastination coach, so I would love to kind of pick your brain another time and ask you a thousand questions around procrastination. But for for me, and as I try to help other people, what are some of the best tools? I know what I do for myself, but what are some of those things that you can do very quickly to address procrastination? Right, this is what you do, Chris. You live this, so can you give me an idea of if I was trying to help a friend or a colleague to get them off the couch to be able to complete something? What's the best way to start?
Well, one of the really sort of quick band-aids, and I call it a band-aid. It's not really a band-aid, it's doing that a disservice, but one of the quickest things you can do is just by changing, and again, it's related to mindset. I mean, you have a really good foundation there. Is that, a lot of us, it's, oh, I have to do this. And if you think about something that you have to do, like you can even do it right now. You can just think of something that, you have to do, and then sort of feel how that feels to you. Like what sort of physical response that you get when you get that, right? And then just reframing it a little bit, taking the power back, because there's a little bit of a defier in all of us. We don't really like being told what to do. I mean, we like being autonomous. We like making our own choices.
Sure.
So simply by changing it to, um, a place of gratitude, which is, I get to work on this project because I have a job that's paying
Hmm,
me in this economy.
okay.
A place of gratitude often helps. Or if it's, more about that autonomy thing, then you say, well, I'm choosing to do this. Well, why are you choosing to do this? I'm choosing to do this because, I won't be letting down my team. I'll be completing the project and I won't lose my job, which I need because this economy is horrible. Very real example, right? After a long day of work, it's Friday. That's a good day to say this.
Hmm.
So Friday, I'll go upstairs. I'll put my butt on the couch. I'll flip to my favorite show. Just enough time I hit play, and it's like, really? You're sitting down? Why don't you do the dishes? Like, so here I have a choice. But I say what? I need to do. I have to. I have to. I just spent all day, all week working, and I just want one show, and I have. Nope, no, 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 no. Okay, I choose to get up and help with the dishes because I love my wife and because I want, on selfishly, I do want peace to be able to sit on that couch and watch that show, but I don't want to be sleeping on that same couch later on in the night.
Sure.
So
Exactly. So
I'm choosing to
you
do it.
thought about the consequences of the consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm
Got it.
choosing to.
Makes
But
sense.
normally, you don't have to get that far though, right? It's just I'm choosing to, and again, because when you're choosing to do something, you're already taking that power back for you. And in my particular case, of choosing to do it out of love, which is a very powerful emotion, right? So, at the bottom of it, under the annoyance, there's that. It so, and that's sort of the second really quick thing. If you can find the joy in doing it, something that would inspire you to do it. I don't say motivation because, um, for me, and I know that there's many people that disagree, but for me, between motivation and inspiration, if I'm asking your motivation, why do you want to go to the gym? Well, I don't want to be fat. Why? Well, I want to look good. Why? I want to be accepted. Why? I don't want to be alone. Boom, fear.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the real reason. That's your
Yeah,
why. That's the pursuit. Yes, I like that.
right. But that to me is operating at a base level that is, I mean, it gets you through, yes, but I'd rather go for, why do you want to go to the gym? Well, I want to look good. Okay. So find your inspiration. So, okay, well, what will that allow you to do in the future that's going to benefit you? Oh, well, I want to be able to, carry my own groceries when I'm 90. I want to be able to, um, play with my grandkids on the floor and not need to, ask for somebody to help me up. Right. And that's
Right.
more of an inspirational side. It's
Gotcha.
tied more to a happy feeling.
Got it.
Um, it's not always possible, but those are two quick things that you can do without really digging too deep.
Got it. Very helpful. Well, great dialogue. I appreciate it, Chris. Hopefully, we have some good fodder out there, and we can help someone um, to get off the couch and not procrastinate. So it's been well.
Oh, there's lots of things here, and Derek, it's been a real pleasure. Just before we go though, just in case somebody wants to learn more about you, they want to pick up some of your books. How can they learn more about you, your books, or reach out to you?
Sure. The easiest way is just you can go to derrickpledger.com, Derrick, Pledger.com. The book is all over Amazon. You can order it anywhere. It's a very quick read. And out of 100 recipes, as I call it, I'm pretty sure that most folks will get some value out of it in terms of repeatable habits or how do you become a person that achieves those things that are important to you. And that's what I wrote it's about service, it's about helping other folks, not just myself. So yeah, you can. 500 Pound Media is the team that I associate myself with. They do a bunch of content. There's some other creators that are out there, but I'm the corporate nerdy book guy. And there's other folks that do other things and a bunch of other content. But at 500 Pound Media is pretty much across all social. So that's where we interact with most people.
Excellent. And as always, to our listeners, don't worry about grabbing a pen and a paper because we will have that in the show notes for you so that you'll be able to easily find it. Again, Derek, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate your time, your insights. Being in the military, your service. Um, and to our listeners, just thank you once again for tuning in. And if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out and try to be that motivation, inspiration for someone else.
Someone else. Yeah,
And
totally. Yeah, I appreciate the time, Chris. This was great. Thank you.
see you again next time.
Yep. Take care.
Now, where did this go? Oh, there it goes.